Welcome back to the Express at the Museum of Vancouver in Kitsilano. This exhibit, Neon Vancouver, Ugly Vancouver. It deals with the controversy that these neon signs caused back in the day. Some thought that they were dangerous or distracting for drivers. We'll let you decide what you think about that. But in the meantime, how about something helpful for drivers? From the H.R. MacMillan Space Centre, we find out how you can save on gas.
Well, hello and welcome to the H.R. MacMillan Space Centre. I'm Cam Cronin for the Express, and today we're going to talk about an old British dude named Sir Isaac Newton. Now, you may have heard about this guy about 350 odd years ago, but I am going to focus in on Newton's second law of motion. Why am I focusing on Newton's second law of motion? Because I had to fill my car up yesterday and I nearly had a stroke. So what does that have to do with Newton? Well, something very important, because you and I are experiencing that here in North America and all parts of the world, but the space industry is also experiencing this fuel crunch. It costs a lot of money to move things up into space, and that has to do with mass. Now, Newton's second law of motion basically says that the heavier something is, the more force it's going to take to accelerate it. Now, when you talk about accelerating, say, a satellite up into space, filling up that rocket is about $51 million. Fuel, the rocket, everything. Every kilogram that you can remove from that is great, because it's less weight to move up into space. Something like the space shuttle was something like $500 million to get it ready to fly, and that's because you're removing millions and millions of pounds of equipment into space. So, I have two objects here. One is a red ball. The other one is a yellow ball, for anybody that might be colorblind. And this one is heavier, and this one is a little lighter. Now, what Newton was talking about was a little test, and we're going to try that right now. We're going to come over here to my handy-dandy high-powered air cannons. And I have, again, a heavy object and a lighter object. I'm going to pop these into my air cannons. The force, in this case, is going to be exactly the same. So I have the same amount of force behind each object, but I have a heavier one and a lighter one. Now, to relate this to, say, a more everyday situation, this lighter one is a smart car, and this heavier one is a Ford Excursion. Now, if I want to accelerate both of them up to, say, 60 kilometers an hour, or if you're driving in Vancouver, 110, and I want to use exactly the same amount of force, let's see what would happen if that was the case. So, Raminder, are you okay just staying right there? Okay, good. Okay, all right, we're gonna go 3, 2, 1, and... You good? Okay, so did you see what happened there? The heavier one, our giant truck, did not move very far. Our lighter one, our smart car, moved a great distance. And this is basically a wonderful thing about Newton's second law of motion. The lighter you can make an object, the better result you're going to get with the same amount of force versus a very heavy object. So if you're in the market for buying a new car, or even if you just look in the trunk of your car and realize you're carrying around half of your household in there, remove that weight. Your car is going to be lighter. It's going to take less force to accelerate your car to 60 kilometers an hour, and you're going to end up saving fuel in the long run. For the Express here at the H.R. MacMillan Space Centre, I'm Cam Cronin, and a crumpled Raminder Samra over there. Hope you have a good one.
The H.R. MacMillan Space Centre is housed in the same building as the Museum of Vancouver, where we are. So you can make a day of it and visit both. It's located in Vanier Park here in Kitsilano. Now, up next on the Express, it's the story of a North Vancouver father who, when faced with a daunting career change, hit a home run.
There's no screaming fans, nobody selling peanuts, popcorn, or programs, just a group of young people who love baseball, and a dad that's made it possible for them to play all year round.
I have 3 boys that play baseball year round, and on the North Shore of Vancouver. Wet, rainy season throughout the majority of the year, and we were using facilities in Richmond and out at UBC. And I couldn't understand why there wasn't something here other than a gym or a school gymnasium.
The facility boasts 4,500 square feet of turf with the ability to create 5 separate batting cages, but it's much more than just baseball.
Right now we have roughly 800 square feet of functional training gym. We use athletic trainers that work in a whole series of ways of training the athletes. So we have a real good group of athletic trainers that work with the young athletes. We have a cardio area. We do group fitness for adults as well. And then in here we have our healthcare services. So we have physiotherapy, sport chiropractor, and massage therapy.
14-year-old Nick Wark says Inside Performance gives him the chance to be ahead of the game for next season.
Okay, there. You moved it at the end.
Yeah.
Okay, so you landed like this.
It's amazing. Nothing like this is in Vancouver, and so it's great because you're not doing anything for almost a year, and then so this you can train in the off season to be even better and warmed up for the new season.
So now we're going to go to here, and what are we going to lead down the mound with? So I want you to lead with your hip and your knee.
He's teaching me to always keep balance when you're lifting your leg up, and always keep in a straight line, so not opening up when you're going down. Instead, lift up your knee and then follow down in a straight line.
A big reason Stefan started his business was for his sons, and they're learning much more than just baseball.
Well, not only does this teach me about baseball and stuff like that, but when I move on and stuff, you can never say you can't do anything, because that's what's going to hold you back from doing what you want to do.
Running one business is a lot of work, but Stefan says he's just getting started in the athletic training business.
Tell you what, the way that I see this isn't going to be my first location. I want to do another location, but I want to do it. I mean, I've already got dreams and visions of having something twice the size of this.
I'm Peter Verge in North Vancouver for The Express.
They've had such success with the facility, they're looking to expand into nutritional sports psychology as well. Would you believe that there's a psychology behind neon signage? It's true, and we'll tell you more about that and share these stories coming up.
Tea bags have a tendency to restrict.
Matthew Lucas on the topic of tea.
They don't allow the tea to sort of open up and bloom and get that full flavor.
I find that my pottery is a very soulful process.
Kathleen Tennock on sculpting your dreams.
It doesn't really matter what comes out of it, it's more what I gain from it.
The Express, we are your local voice.
Community programming on Shaw has been generously sponsored in part by
hairstyling and color services for Shaw TV, provided by the Lounge Hair Studio, loungehairstudio.com.
Welcome back to The Express at the Museum of Vancouver. If the bright lights and the buzzing of these neon signs is getting a bit much for you, don't worry, we're going to mellow you out with a quality cup of tea. Did you know that the average person consumes 2.5 kilos of tea leaves per year? Yeah, Squamish resident Matthew Lucas understands this devotion to the tea. So much so, he opened up his own shop.
Hey there.
Hi.
How are you doing today?
Good.
Good. So you want?
Green tea.
Green tea. The British Industrial Revolution was basically happened because of tea. Because people could have tea in the day, they would get more substance in them, and they could work longer hours, and they could produce more. And that was basically through the help of tea.
A few dried leaves, as harmless in appearance as a kitten. But these clippings have brewed a designated meal all unto itself. They also create the second most consumed beverage in the world, second only to water. And these delicate stems have even sparked revolutions and wars.
Huge events in human history have been are surrounded by tea. The American Revolution was kind of what sparked it was the overtaxation of tea. The Boston Tea Party was because people were fed up with paying too much money for their teas. So that is what we get.
With British parents and grandparents, it's not surprising that Matthew Lucas was steeped in tea culture, despite growing up in Canada's Great White North. The Yukon native then turned his teapot passion into a full-time business when he opened Lucas Teas in Squamish only 2 months ago.
We have a guy in Assam that owns a tea garden that sends me a lot of those teas, and then because teas come from basically all over the world.
Green, white, yellow, oolong, black, post-fermented, and herbal teas, stored in 90 glass jars, come from as far as India, Japan, and China, as well as Egypt, South Africa, and South America. Lucas pulls a classic tea born from an ancient trading route.
This is the tea that traveled the 16-month Silk Road. And what's really cool about it is It's like one of the more acquired taste teas.
It smells really smoky.
Yeah, totally. This is Lapsang Souchong. And what's really cool about it is that the flavor in it. So essentially what happened is this big battle happened in the Fujian region, and they didn't have enough time to like properly treat their tea, so they quickly dried it under pine needles under the tea. Now it's become like this sort of world famous tea.
Lucas Teas will take care of all your teapot and cozy needs, including infusers. This is probably the most popular, but it's not necessarily the strongest choice. When choosing a diffuser, whether it's going to be for a cup of tea or a pot, you want to make sure that your leaves have lots of room to breathe. Tea bags can have the opposite effect.
One of the other things is that tea bags have a tendency to restrict, they don't allow the tea to sort of open up and bloom and get that full flavor. And that's what the beauty part of like a nice loose leaf tea is.
Hand-picked, handcrafted, leaves are harvested whole rather than machine processed. And giving these leaves the white glove treatment improves the flavor even more.
All teas are a little bit different. The water temperature needs to be a little bit different for individual teas. So green teas are quite delicate, so the water temperature shouldn't be like as hot. And then you can have the full boiling water on the black teas. And then through that, you also have your time, which is the amount of steeping each tea has. Like, there's some teas that are actually only steeped for 30 seconds. And it's just really subtle teas.
Lucas doesn't take his tea drinking too seriously. He'll even take a spot of milk and sugar, as the British do, despite knowing the history behind the tradition.
When they first got tea to England back in the day, they had to travel from all the way from China or India, all around. And it would be, by that time, it would be like moldy, so they'd put milk and they'd put their 2 sugars in there and they'd have their tea.
The purpose behind the tradition is now redundant, but the story lives on, giving tea drinkers a greater appreciation for their loose leaf sipping experience. From Squamish, I'm Nicole Fitzgerald for The Express.
Matthew is currently studying to become a tea sommelier. Currently, there are only 7 in all of Canada. As for Nicole, she says since doing that story, she's become a loose leaf junkie. Now, our next story on today's Express is also from the sea to sky. Ceramic artist Kathleen Tennock comes from a place with a very different landscape than Whistler. Yet her 2 worlds happily collide with her latest project.
When I'm on the wheel, it doesn't really matter what comes out of it. It's more what I gain from it, because it is such a tactile and such a soothing process.
Sitting down at a spinning wheel with hands immersed in clay is a place of solace for ceramic artist Kathleen Tennock.
I find that my pottery is a very soulful process. Some people have meditation, some people have yoga, and I have mud. It works for me.
Fortunately for this home-based artist, she has found a market for her mud-turned art. Born in South Africa, Kathleen blends her past with her present, bringing a unique style to the world of ceramic arts.
I grew up in Africa, and I've always been inspired by things that are a little bit more unrefined, things that are a little bit more raw, more primitive.
Glaze is rarely found on Kathleen's work. Instead, she uses a lengthy primitive firing process that causes smoke to find its way into cracks and markings. No 2 pieces are ever exactly the same.
Over the years, I don't think that pottery has changed much, and it has stayed fairly simple because it is just mud, and we change it into things that we love.
The influences of Kathleen's Canadian life have also made their way into her work through an ongoing series of ceramic bears.
I've always loved the form of the bear because it's such a spirited shape. It's such a spirited symbol.
From a very moldable bowl shape on the wheel, the bears eventually take on soapstone-like qualities, allowing this mother of 2 to carve out the bear's final shape.
You have to learn how to let go and realize that the process is really where I came from and not necessarily the final art.
The appreciation for Kathleen's final art continues to grow, which keeps her coming back to the place where she finds peace.
if you truly just let it happen, which on the wheel it often does, it often changes direction from where I had maybe envisioned, and that's the way the best pieces happen always.
From Kathleen's garage turned pottery studio in Whistler, I'm Jessica Turner for The Express.
Kathleen's ceramic bears are on display at the Whistler Public Library. There's always so much to see around the Sea to Sky, Metro Vancouver, and the Fraser Valley, and we've got your spotlight on local events.
Ola Onabule returns to BC after his magnificent Canadian debut at the Jazz Festival. Ola will be performing on November 25th at the Bell Centre and on November 27th at the Centennial Theatre in North Vancouver. See old-fashioned ornaments and decorations throughout the Burnaby Village Museum and Farmhouse. The season features traditional entertainment, demos, hands-on activities, and exhibits from the early 1900s. Over 1 million twinkling lights transform the forest and train in Stanley Park. Explore the woodland paths leading to enchanting animated displays and holiday sounds. The event is a fundraiser for the BC Professional Firefighters Burn Fund. It's bright nights.
Also, Neon Vancouver, Ugly Vancouver here at the Museum of Vancouver, located in Vanier Park in Kitsilano. There's a curator talk happening on December 1st, so you can find out about all of the civic controversy that surrounded these signs back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. One camp thought glamour, another camp thought visual squalor. You're watching The Express only on Shaw TV, and we're going to leave you with a visual tour. Thanks for watching.